What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Rise Up Rich podcast. I'm your host, David Haas. Thanks for joining me today. I'm in the studio solo today, and I'm going to be covering the concept, the art of saying no. And this is something that's actually pretty near and dear to me because this is really something that I had to learn how to get over. And I'm just going to share my experience on how I was able to learn how to start saying no, which ended up being one of the pivotal turning points in my life. So what is the art of saying no? Well, ultimately, it's about getting connected to what it is that you truly want to do in this world. And when you do that, then you stop saying yes to anything that is not aligned with that goal or aligned with that lighthouse, whatever that purpose is. So the first step is to get super aligned with what it is that you want to do. And I've released tons of content on how to do that, but I'll take you through some again quickly. If you don't know what your passion is, if you don't know what it is that you're meant to do put on this earth, there's a couple things you can do. One is you can connect to what it was that you loved to do as a kid, or what you used to tell mom and dad that you wanted to become when you were, a tiny little kid. And for me, I used to tell my mom and dad that I wanted to be a minister because my mom was a minister, and I used to love the impact that she had and see how much people adored her because how willing she was to help other people. And for that, she gained a lot of attention and, good attention. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. But then over time, the programs and the belief systems began to creep in, and then I started thinking that money was what I needed to do, and you can't make a lot of money being a minister, and all of these things, started flowing into my life, and that's what kind of led me down the path of entrepreneurship, which, I see, as a good thing because it led me to a place where I can sit here and release this podcast and run a successful business and open up a successful coaching business and help a bunch of people. I also have my other restaurant that, I employ like 35 people. So there's a lot of good that comes out of me kind of going in the wrong direction in life, but learning how to get realigned with what it is that you truly want to do in this world will help you begin to start saying no. Okay. So for me, because I wasn't aligned with my true purpose, and I thought my purpose was about making money, I was just constantly saying yes to every single opportunity that was around me. And this started to kind of basically spread my focus way too thin. And I started, I never was fully into one concept. And there was moments in my life where I was fully 100%, this is all I'm doing, and those are the moments where my businesses excelled the most, when I just got laser-like focused and didn't have anything else clouding me. But in order to do that, you have to get real crystal clear on what it is that you want to do. And even for me, even now that I've gotten crystal clear on what it is that I want to do, which is coaching, helping people, speaking, doing podcasts, all this kind of stuff, there's still a level of focus that needs to be put into this business as well. And when you're not really clear on exactly what the direction is and how this business is going to expand, then again, you might start saying yes to a bunch of other opportunities, or yes to yourself even, which would be another level of saying no, because the opportunities are just so abundant, and that becomes an actual challenge. So let me just circle back though, just getting aligned with your purpose. And number one is just to get connected. So you can check to see what you used to love to do as a kid. What was it that you wanted to do before you took on all the programs and belief systems and thought you needed to make a bunch of money? Like, what were the things that you said you wanted to do? I remember when I was really, really young, I wanted to be a stuntman, which is kind of hilarious because I was like this wild kid that used to jump around off couches and jump downstairs and these kinds of things. So I made the connection that I wanted to be a stuntman, and then I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and but at the root, before I think all of these little things started coming in, was like I wanted to be a minister, just like my mom. So get connected to what it was you used to do. And there might be several, like there was for me, and maybe you can combine all of those into your purpose today. The second thing is to ask yourself the question, like, what would you do if you couldn't fail? If you couldn't fail at anything in your life, what would you do? And this will start to, this puts you in a place where it eliminates the fear of judgment, eliminates the fear of failure, the fear of losing everything. And when you can answer that question, that might be an indicator on what you're truly passionate about. And the third way is like using the lottery experiment, which is essentially taking the money out of the equation, where just envision yourself like you've won the lottery, right? And you go through the list, and this is kind of a fun thing to do. You go through the list of like, what would you do first? What house would you buy? What cars would you buy? Where would you travel to? And just keep checking everything off the list, and just keep asking yourself, and then what would you do? And then what would you do? And ultimately, once you have met every single materialistic need, experiential need that you've ever wanted to achieve, and once you've met all of these, then you're set with, okay, I've done everything that I've ever wanted to do. I've experienced everything I ever wanted to experience. Now what do I want to do? And that might be an indicator as to what your passion might be. And even if it's in a general direction, that's fine, because as long as you're moving in a general direction of your passion, eventually you're going to start narrowing it down. Like for me, I'll give you a perfect example. For me in coaching, when I first started out, my focus was to help people and start like a one-on-one coaching business. And as I continue to expand and as this business continues to unfold, I've come to the realization that one-on-one coaching is not where I'm going to be able to have the greatest amount of impact. And I'm moving more towards group coaching and online stuff. So speaking to larger audiences, because I feel like my impact is going to be greater if I'm able to expand and I'm not stuck, one-on-one with clients. So there still obviously will always be a one-on-one element of what I do, but I learned this through the process of doing. Okay, so that would be the third step, I think, or the fourth step on how to discover your passion, is just pick something. Like make an educated guess on what you think you're passionate about and start doing it. And as you start doing it, the how will be revealed by taking action. And this is like, one of the cornerstones of my coaching is like, don't be obsessed with the how, because the how is revealed just by taking action, right? And it's like a big thing that I've been on lately is we don't need to think about anything, right? Our thoughts, when we really start to really observe them, are completely useless. They're not serving us in any way. So just make an educated guess based on these things and then start moving forward. And then there's no thinking required. You just start moving forward. And as you start moving forward, all of those questions that you had will begin to be answered. You'll start getting more aligned with your purpose. And then when you're truly aligned with what it is that you want to do, it's pretty easy to say no, right? So when someone says, let's just use me as an example. Before I was aligned with my true purpose, which was helping people, like through this platform, through podcasting, through Instagram, through YouTube. And then eventually it'll be online courses and one-on-one coaching, all this stuff. So now that I was aligned with this, and this is all that I wanted to do, then as opportunities arose, I would just say no to them. When someone would say, you know what you should start doing? You start trading options stocks, right? Because they knew I was once involved in the stocks. And I was like, well, no, I'm not going to do that, because it's just going to pull me away from what it is I truly want to do. Someone says you should get into real estate. You should buy rentals, which I already did also. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because I know what it is that I truly want to do. See, the hook of money is no longer in me, right? So people can't flash an opportunity in front of me and it just steers me off of my direction, right? I can see that there's unlimited potential in what I'm doing currently, and I don't need to get off track and be like, oh, there's an opportunity over here, there's an opportunity over here. Okay, so that is like the first step. The first art of saying no is getting aligned with your true purpose. The second step of saying no is coming to the understanding that opportunities are abundant. A lot of the reasons why we say yes all the time is because we're scared to miss out on the opportunity, or we have FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on buying that company, the stock in that company that ends up soaring, right? Fear of missing out on this amazing opportunity to open up a restaurant because there's a gap in the market. Here's the thing: it's like opportunities are literally a dime a dozen. They are all around us at all times, and just because you miss one, then you just get on the next one. Like, it's literally that simple. And when you start to realize that, then you will be able to say no to all of these opportunities that are constantly coming at you. So because you'll let go of your fear of missing out, or the fear of not being in the right place at the right time, whatever that may be. There's a spiritual teaching that says you are exactly where you need to be, right? Everything that you've that you've learned up until this point, everything that you've experienced puts you in the exact moment that you're supposed to be. So when you get aligned with that, and you get aligned with the fact that opportunities are literally everywhere, and this will happen more and more as you get more aligned with your purpose. When I was unaligned with my purpose, I felt like opportunities were scarce. As I got aligned with my purpose, opportunities began to, like, literally, it was becoming hard to say no to all of the opportunities, and I had to take a step back and be like, okay, wait a second here. It's like, yeah, I can see all these opportunities, but I need to get clear on what direction I'm heading so that I can start saying no to the abundance of opportunities that are all around me. So step 2 is realizing that opportunities are literally limitless. They are all around us at all times. Okay. So just tuning into the fact that opportunities are abundant, kind of setting your radar to the fact that opportunities are abundant, all these opportunities will start to be revealed to you. Okay, so just tuning your radar into the opportunities is going to begin to change your outlook on the fact that opportunities are all around you. It's kind of like when you are thinking about buying a new car and you never really noticed that car on the road, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about buying a Jeep, let's say, and then all of a sudden you notice Jeeps everywhere, right? So this is the same thing that will happen to you just from listening to this podcast and understanding that opportunities are a dime a dozen. When you start opening your eyes to the fact that opportunities are all around you, you'll start seeing them, okay? So just opening your eyes, bring your awareness around the fact that opportunities are all around us. That will start to show you that opportunities are abundant. And once you realize that opportunities are abundant, then you can start saying no to them because you're not so scared of missing out on the opportunity, if that makes sense. Okay, so the last step of the art of saying no is understanding why you're saying yes to everything, which seems really logical. But for me, and let me just give you my own experience. So for me, people pleasing was essentially why I was saying yes all of the time, right? So you can label it as people pleasing, or you can label it as being a yes man, whatever it is, but it's essentially people pleasing. And for me, I had to get to the root of why I was people pleasing all the time. And with a little bit of spiritual work, which is essentially just being like, why am I such a people pleaser? Why am I always saying yes? And then sitting quietly in meditation and asking for the truth to be revealed over time. But this one actually came to me relatively quickly though. But over time, as you practice more and more, this answer is going to come to you. And it's kind of actually the exact same example as the radar, tuning your radar. And once you just put the question out there, like, why am I such a people pleaser? Why can I never say no to anybody, right? The answer will start coming into your consciousness, okay? Whether you sit in meditation or whether you don't do anything at all besides ask that question, eventually it's going to be answered, okay? So for me, I just like to have things happen quickly. So if I have a burning question that I need answered, I want to get to the truth of it as quickly as I possibly can. So this is why I'm taking the time to clear my mind, get out of the analytical mind, step outside the circle of what I know, and try to have the truth revealed to me. So when I started becoming aware that I was a people pleaser, I started asking myself the question, why am I such a people pleaser? And really quickly, because I sat in meditation, the answer came to me. It was related to how I grew up with my dad. And my dad was this kind of guy that you kind of had to walk on eggshells around. And so the ego, which is the mind unobserved, created a survival pattern for me, which was to basically walk on eggshells, always be a good boy, right? And so that I didn't set my dad off and have him go into like a fit of rage. Not like that he was like this violent guy or anything, but he would yell at you, and as a kid, you're scared of that. So the survival pattern that my ego created to protect me from that was to make sure that dad was always happy, right? And it translated into a fear of conflict for me later on in life. Okay, so I was fearful all the time of conflict, of getting into fights or whatever that may be. There was also an association that was revealed to me later on that when I was a kid, this is actually a good story for a podcast, I guess. When I was a kid, like I said, I was this wild kid jumping all over, and I was in the garage one day and I was swinging on these welding tanks, the hoses of these welding tanks, and the tanks fell and they landed on top of me, and I was like trapped under there for about a half hour. My mom was in the house or something at the time. So I was really young because my mom died when I was 9. So I think I was like 7 or 8. And so I was trapped underneath these like 500-pound welding tanks. as like a 7-year-old kid, and I had broke my arm, broke a couple ribs, and finally my mom came out and was like, it was kind of miraculous. She was able to lift the welding tanks with one hand and pull me out with another. And they talk about how women have strength when their children are in trouble. That's an example. So anyways, finally, the reason I'm telling this story is because of that incident, I developed like I was claustrophobic because I was trapped under there for so long. I couldn't get out. That turned into a fear of confined spaces. That fear of confined spaces was also associated with my fear of conflict. Okay, so then I had these two elements that kind of came together to create this overall fear of conflict. One was dad when I was a young kid, and then second was my brain went to, if I get into a fight or an altercation, someone might pin me down and I might have a panic attack, right? Which seems kind of ridiculous when I say it out loud, but this is what the ego will do. The ego tries to protect us. The ego understood that when we were under those welding tanks, we were scared as hell. And the ego wants to make sure that we never feel that ever again. So what does it do? It creates mechanisms to make sure you never get into those situations. Now, it wasn't for me I didn't create a fear of being pinned by welding tanks, but later on in life, when I would be like wrestling with my brother or wrestling with my dad or my uncle or something like that, and I would get pinned down, I would freak out. That translated into, if I'm in a fight and someone pins me down, I'm going to have this freak out, this claustrophobia, panic attack, essentially. All of this aligned to becoming a people pleaser, which is, this is the first time I've really spoken this out loud. So it's like, holy shit, like you can kind of see like how it all kind of came together here, right? And so what that turned into for me was just constantly saying yes because of these two elements. So as I became aware of the fact that this is the reason why I was a people pleaser, then I just began to go and deal with those fears. So how did I deal with them? Well, one is I envisioned myself in a confined space and started to feel the fear of the confined space. And then I started putting it to the test. I started taking mixed martial arts, and I was constantly in jiu-jitsu being pinned to the ground, and I breathed through the fear. I was in my attic, like a year ago or 2 years ago, and I had to crawl through this tiny little hole, and I could feel the fear of claustrophobia still coming up. It's still there. I just sat with it for a minute and breathed through it. I was able to climb through the hole and climb through all these tight little spaces because I became free of the fear. Once I eliminated the fear of claustrophobia, then guess what? The people-pleasing mechanism that I had been using to make sure I never felt that fear ever again went away. So now if someone was doing something, let's say at my business, that I disapproved of, instead of avoiding the situation and not calling them out because I was fearful of the conflict, even if it was a girl, right? I'm not scared of getting into a fight with them and her pinning me down, right? But that survival pattern still was there, right? So I would not call people out of that fear of conflict, okay? So what I then did after I overcame that fear of confined spaces, the fear of conflict that was associated to my dad, then if someone was doing something that, I did not approve of in my business or that I wasn't aligned with, I would call them out immediately, whether it created a conflict or not, okay? So this is something I still work on. I still catch myself falling back into that pattern, but I think the key is that before all of this realizations it was all completely unconscious. I was doing all of these things and I was just not even aware that survival pattern had been put into place. Okay. Once I became aware, the healing began. It instantaneously began. Just the awareness alone took my people pleasing, mechanism from, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, from a 10 to a 5. Then with some more deep inner spiritual work, it's probably at a 1, maybe even a 0. Every now and then it kind of rears its ugly head, right? But it's, completely manageable now, whereas before it was in complete control. So understanding why you're saying yes all the time, right, is probably linked. Most people that are yes men, yes women are people pleasers, right? And so understanding why that survival pattern was created in your life, what is it that you're trying to avoid by saying yes, by not having conflict? What is it you're trying to avoid feeling? And once you identify that feeling and you can actually deal with the feeling, guess what? You don't need the survival pattern anymore. You don't need to be a people pleaser anymore. And yeah, the transition's slow, but again, everything is happening in perfect synchronicity. You're exactly where you need to be. There's not much more to do than actually even just listen to this podcast. Listening to this podcast gave you the awareness that You're a people pleaser for a reason, right? And that's all that you need to do, because now all the answers will begin to flow into your consciousness and you'll be able to become free of it. So yeah, I think that's basically where I want to kind of leave that is, why are you people pleasing, right? Getting aligned with your passion, understanding that opportunities are abundant. These are the core things that are going to allow you to move out of this people pleasing, this being a yes man, constantly saying yes to everything. And you can learn the art of saying no through this mechanism. The other thing that you'll observe as you start saying no more is that people will respect you more. If you look at like heroes in television or movies, a lot of why we identify with the hero, always Iron Man comes to mind when I think of this, is because he just speaks his mind. He speaks exactly what's on his mind. There is no, I don't even want to say filter, because he's doing it in a way that is kind, but he is just his true self, and he doesn't let people push him around, right? So once you get rid of this yes man mentality, you'll start to notice that people will just like respect you more, right? Just like the respect you have for Iron Man, which is as silly as that sounds, people will have that same level of respect for you. You'll be the Tony Stark of whatever it is that you do. And it's like, it's infectious, that type of personality. Even though you might be disagreeing with somebody, people are still drawn to it because they can tell that you're being authentic, right? And authentic is a word that gets overused, but that at the core of it, that's what it is connecting to who you truly are, getting rid of all of the programs, all of the blocks, all of the belief systems, and just being your true self and doing it with kindness and compassion. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And when you do that, people are like, whoa, I want to be around this person more. And essentially, people are attracted to your message. And you kind of see that even with my Instagram, with my business. It's like it grew kind of organically, right? So Hawkins, who is like, I consider, one of the greatest spiritual teachers of our time, he would have events and he would do no advertising really whatsoever, besides like maybe an email blast saying to his following, saying, hey, I'm doing a live event on this date, and like it would sell out in like a minute, right? And that was the power that he not even the power that he had, I want to say, but the attraction that he had, because he was just so beyond all of the programs, and he was just so truly authentic and is connected to his higher self. And when you can learn how to do that, people are going to be drawn to it naturally, and it'll become effortless. There will be no more force. So yeah, let's wrap it up with that. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Don't forget, every single Wednesday, I have a brand new podcast. Also, check out a new company that I've released with a good friend of mine. It's called Effect Apparel. It's basically conscious clothing that is designed to help you keep positive states of mind in mind throughout the day. You can check that out at effectapparel.ca or effectapparel.com. Other than that, we'll see you again next Wednesday.